Welcome to ISRA's Grand Touring Championship, brought to you by the Z1 SimWheel LCD display. Head to z1simwheel.com to get the software or hardware to get these excellent telemetry displays and dashboards on your sim rig. And you can also find an excellent selection of really cool wheels there at z1simwheel.com. This is Season 9, Race 8 at Watkins, Glen. I'm Daniel Quaroni, and with me are Anthony Muniz.
Hey, great to be back with you guys.
And Brian Carey.
Hello again, everyone.
Alright, well, we are at Watkins, Glen this week after a rather exciting race at Zolder. And it's pretty exciting because James Cullen bowed out, and actually so did Brian Carey from that race. So Anthony Muniz takes the second spot here from Brian, and Daniel Quaroni, Dimas Milana, and Brent Briles locked in a massive battle for fourth, and even Troy Harder's right in there. Mike Young lagging back due to missing some races. Russell Cow is holding on to first in the SR8, but Lauren Bateman and John Kuzlin are battling neck and neck for second there. Mike Kelly still a bit back there in fourth, despite the great battles he has had with John Kuzlin. And Carl Blumbauer, just for racing, still in there. Finally, in the Ford GT, Daniel Gralti leading by just a hair. Both Todd Carver and Corey Davis, even Eduardo Beninca are all right in striking range there. Todd and Corey obviously the closest. They're just 2 and 3 points down from Daniel. We got Timothy Stahl in fifth, and we got the map.
All right, here we go using the Watkins Glen boot configuration. That includes the inner loop chicane there. As you can see, basically this is a pretty wide open track here. The multiclass racing will kind of get funneled down through the S's to some extent, but definitely through the inner loop. Inner loop is definitely one line, so look for things to get backed up a little bit there. Otherwise, the track is pretty wide open, and you should be able to see a lot of interclass and outer class passing happening here. The key to get right, though, I think, is the 8, 9, 10, 11 section there, coming out of the boot. The heel and the toe number 9, well, not the toe, sorry, number 9, coming back onto the NASCAR track there is a very, very difficult corner. So watch for some potential incidents coming through there.
Well, in the HPDs, Jim Cullen takes the pole with a 130.8. Brian Carey's next to him. And with row 2, we have Andy Fuller, Troy Harder. Row 3 is John Kelly and Daniel Quaroni. Row 4 is Anthony Muniz and Dimas Milana. And row 5 is Ryan Huff and Jeremy Burris. Check out those times, though. All very, very close once you get past James Cullen.
All right, now at the Radical SR8 qualifying, we have Russell Cow on pole, 1 minute 42.4. Chris Dameron Jr. at 1 minute 42.5 right beside him. Then Lauren Bateman and John Kuzlin, teammates there, separated by 0.02 of a second. Pretty impressive in the second row. Julio Palacio, Chuck Chambliss in the third row. And on the fourth row, all by himself, unfortunately very lonely, Carl Blumbauer.
And then for the Ford GTs, Todd Carver was leading the class once again, ahead of Eduardo Beninca. Second row was Daniel Gralti and Corey Davis. The third row will be Marty Jeffries and James Mines. Then Renee Weisflug and Kenny Coughlin on the fourth row, with Tim McLeish and Stephen Clark running out the Ford GT top 10.
Well, Watkins Glen is the track I like to call the Great Equalizer. It's actually a relatively easy track to go fast on, and even though people may not be consistent and may not post such good times during the race, everyone is able to qualify very, very close, because it's pretty easy to eventually, one of those times, get a really good lap in.
It's pretty fast and flowing, actually. It's probably one of the, well, actually for any car, really one of the more flowing tracks we race on. I'd actually equate this a little bit to Spa in some circumstances because of the way the elevation changes and kind of the way the corners flow from one to the other. It's not quite on that level, obviously, but it's a lot closer than people would think, and just one of those tracks like Zolder, which was stop-start, a lot of chicanes, a lot of kind of awkward corners. There's really not a lot of awkward corners except for that inner loop chicane there, which really I'm not a big fan of that corner myself. That said, it is very much like the old bus stop at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit before they remodeled it 3 or 4 times. That original bus stop was quite an interesting corner, but not as interesting here at Watkins Glen.
Speaking of Zolder, you can see that the Ford GTs are hanging way, way back after the disaster of Zolder on the start. So they'll be well in the boot by the time the field goes green, but I believe they have an agreement not to race until they reach the front straight now. And we're going to see the pace car head into the pits. There it goes. And they're off with James Cullen getting a pretty good start there.
Brian Carey will easily take that second spot away from Andy Fuller there, so he'll lose a spot. Fuller also looks like he might have to defend a bit against Troy Harder as they head into the S's. They're still tube side as a little bit further back on board now with Dimas Maulana as they head through the S's really close to John Kelly. Looks like he might have even given him a little bit of a tap there. A bit of rear damage on Kelly's car very early in the race. Looks like they're starting to settle into their positions now. Qualroni making a look on the inside, going into the inner loop right there. They go side by side. And
John Kelly is knocked off. John Kelly tried to make a move on Troy Harder there and got knocked right into the tires.
Yeah, you saw Harder got caught up on that inside curbing there, unsettled his car, and it bumped him a little bit wide into Kelly's car. Not really any where for either of those cars to go, but it looks like that was some severe damage to Kelly's car.
Although, honestly, I think that was a pretty bold move. When I made that move on Troy, I was a little bit concerned about making that move, you know, lap one. Did I have it? So I think John Kelly coming from behind, that was pretty brave and a little too brave, as you can see. And Dimas Milana and Troy Harder getting together there as Troy got a little bit loose, probably had some damage, and that is obviously going to send them back. Anthony Muniz taking advantage of that, as we saw on board. And it looks like Brent Briles is missing the nose of his car as we look forward from the nose of Gilles Morat.
That's Jerry Morsdorf, actually.
Oh, sorry, Jerry Morsdorf. Can never get those two straight.
Especially from this camera angle, it is kind of hard to differentiate between the two there. But yeah, a lot of actions in the HPD happening right off the bat there. It looked like, actually looked like when Dan made that move on Troy going to the chicane. Oh, it looks like that's Rene Weissblog there, just up on the inside curb there. He's able to hold on to the car, but not onto the position as Kennedy Coghlan takes it. But yeah, it just looked like because Troy, Dan got on the inside of Troy there, Troy was in there a lot slower, and John just, I don't think he was trying to make a pass. I think it's just, once you start turning into that corner there, it's kind of hard to adjust your speed, and came up on Troy pretty quickly there. And unfortunately, John was in that corner anyway, was the one to lose out, but unfortunately, Troy later on that lap, and Dimas Milana was, got together.
Then we see some pretty close racing here early on in the Radical class. We've got John Kuzin leading that little three-pack, three group of cars there, and another three group of cars here in the Ford GTs as they are battling for, I believe that was second, third, and fourth. And up in the top three right here is also very close. It's got Todd Carver leading the field right now, and the battle for second place is very, very close. Eduardo Beninca currently holding that position, but Daniel Gralti looking very strong here in the opening couple laps and seeing if he can't find a way around the number 04 of Eduardo.
This is one of those things about this track here, is because there's such a long run down from turn one all the way down through the S's to the chicane. So it is quite a drafting track. So if you're able to stay in touch with the guys ahead of you, it's really hard to shake them, because that draft can suck you in probably, I'd say, upwards of half a second a lap. So I mean, you're really going to have to pull out a lead to break that draft. And these Ford GTs right now, I don't think any one of them is fast enough to pull away from anyone else. So we're going to see that. Until the lapping traffic comes around, we're going to probably see that battle go on until then.
And speaking of lapping traffic, we didn't mention at the start of the show, but this is the first race that we are racing with the new regulation Ford GT. Ford GT receiving some changes. I think one of the biggest ones is lower top end. So look for the HPDs to have quite a bit more top speed than we're used to seeing so far this season, and that'll make for some interesting passing. Probably makes things a little bit easier here at Watkins Glen.
And you can see up in the background there in the turn one there, a lot of cars using the extra tarmac on the outside there. You can jump over that curb and get a lot of grip. Sometimes more speed coming off that turn one, or you can cut it on the inside, on the proper side of the curb, I guess, and shorten the corner. It's kind of both ways here, as James Vine's going to take a look at the inside of Marty Jeffries, who's back after a brief hiatus. I think this is his first race this season, actually. But yeah, I guess there's two philosophies to taking that first corner. I guess if you run a little bit wide, it's okay to go over the curb, and some ways equally as fast. I mean, you're a little longer way around, but a little bit higher exit speed, so just kind of how your car is handling at that particular time.
Yeah, the trick when you go over the curb is you don't get to take advantage of, we see turn 1 of that great camber in the corner that you get on turn 1, but it does flatten out towards the exit of the turn, and then it's a little bit better to go on the outside, I think. Just a bit.
Yeah, it just gives you an option too, because you're going there and racing or whatever. Sometimes you make small mistakes in some corners, and a small mistake, and we're going to use the interloop chicane as an example, is one place where you make a small mistake and that could have dire consequences. Small mistake there in turn 1 means, okay, well, I'm not going to try to turn it over the curb, I'll just let the car run over the curb and I'll get through it no problem. So it's mistakes are punished differently at different corners. And Chuck Chambliss taking a good look on the inside of Julio Palacio here. Dr. Palacio, as we coined his nickname last race. We'll see if we can shake that for him. I'm not sure he's entirely happy about that, but just how these commentaries go sometimes. But Chuck Chambliss takes position from Julio. Just also noticing on our live TV here, as I'm recording this, it's the second half of the Super Bowl, and looks like someone forgot to pay the power bill because the lights are out in the Superdome right now.
Whoops. And it's also some side-by-side racing through the S's there in the 4GTs, and probably not something you see all that often. Looks like Kenny Coughlin going to try and take advantage of the slower top-end speed that James Mines had coming out of the S's going side-by-side, and he'll take the position going into the interloop right there, and that moves him up into 6th spot in the 4GTs.
Yeah, way to take advantage of the opportunity. What happened to me at Zolder, I was racing with John Kelly, and then I just got slid up for a corner, and Ryan Huff got by me, so someone moved there that even though James Mines was trying to defend against it, he just couldn't. He kind of had the speed. Very nice. Looking back from Daniel Geralti's car, and now forward from Rene Weissflog's car. I don't think Rene really intended to make that move. I think that was some early braking that he didn't expect.
Yeah, it was a nice reaction time that he had there, then good driving by both of those guys to for James Mines to see that he did dive on the inside to avoid running into the rear of him and leaving room for both of those guys so they didn't make contact. James Mines obviously maintains the position once I got out of the turn 8 there, but good driving by both of those guys.
You can see Dan Geralti's moved up ahead of Eduardo Benica to get second position. As you can see, Todd Carver up ahead. He's about 2 seconds up the road there. So outside the regular draft, but we'll see if Dan's able to close that gap on him. And now Jeremy Burris, who unfortunately had to start from the pit lane this race, is moving his way back up the LMP field. That's a pass on Lance Snyder that moves him up into 9th position. I have a feeling these guys are going to be swapping positions a little bit here. Oh, now the HPDs are coming through the field here, and we've got 4 GTs battling, and these 4 GTs are pretty strung together. They are right with each other, so...
You can see 4 GTs on either side of the circuit there, trying to make it difficult for Andy Fuller to find a spot to get through, and makes a dive on the outside and then, or the inside, going through the carousel there, and gets that done safely as Rene Weissflog takes a little bit of a peek on the outside of Kenny Coughlin as they head into the boot section. You can see there's cars everywhere trying to figure out which way is the best to go.
Yeah, this is one thing too, is when we're you kind of know where other drivers are and where they're slow and where they're fast and where you can make moves. There's one thing you can't replicate in that practice is coming onto the first train of cars. There's really no way you can practice coming across a train of 6, 7, 8 4 GTs the first time and seeing where you get around them, because this is just, I mean, you learn it trial by fire, I guess, here, and you just do the best you can, but it is not easy.
Yeah, and you can see this is the second, third, and fourth in class. Daniel Coroni has a great run on Andy Fuller coming down into turn 1. Looks like he's going to be ahead, and he actually gets by going into turn 1. Just had the better momentum coming out of the final corner. Fuller is a little bit held up there by the leading 4 GTs and lost his momentum. That's a great pass there by Qualroni to move himself up into P3 for the LMP2 class. Looks like Fuller's going to have some speed to try and fight his way back. More 4 GTs in front, almost 3 wide there, heading down towards the inner loop, and Fuller's got a great run going down into the corner.
Yeah, it looks like Dan got a little wide there going through corner 1, and Andy was able to get the momentum through. So that's just kind of how traffic works here. Is they've got Jeremy Burris coming up behind Gilles Moret. But yeah, it's going to be that first run through traffic there. Now they get the Radicals to come up against, and fortunately for the LMPs, unfortunately for the Radicals, I guess themselves, there's only 7 of them. So I mean, it shouldn't be as hard. But the next round of lapping these HPDs make won't be nearly as hectic. Good shot of Ryan Huff there behind Anthony Muniz, so he's coming back on the boot. Now we're with Chris Dameron Jr. Coming up behind Russell Cow. This is a battle for the lead right now of the Radicals.
And a rare empty track all around these guys. You can see third and fourth place, Lauren Bateman and John Kuzlin, a little bit behind them there in the shot, heading down into the interloop right now. But the battle for first place is very, very close. It was pretty close in the last race we had at Zolder as well. So good racing here in the Radical class.
It's going to be one of those battles here, these Radicals, because they're really lighter on these corners here. As Dameron Jr. is sliding it pretty nicely around these corners, so is Russell Cow for that matter, but there's really not a lot to separate those 2 guys in terms of lap speed, and because of the drafting, there's going to be nothing to really separate them until they get some other cars kind of mixed in between them.
Oh, a mistake there by Marty Jeffries, and I'm not sure if he outbroke himself or what going into the inner loop there. Nearly runs into the back of Lance Snyder and manages to save it going into the inner loop there, but loses a spot to James Mines as they exited down into the carousel. And it was good driving there for him to save his car and not run into anybody.
And it looks like Renee Weissflog is making a move on the inside against Kenny Coughlin. Not quite able to pull it off, though. Coughlin ahead. Dameron has the run quite easily here. As long as he doesn't top out the car, on its total top speed, he'll have the pass here, and he's got it into first place for Chris Dameron Jr.
Yeah, but Russell Cow is fighting back right now. I mean, we'll see if Chris has the overall speed to pull away from Russell right now, but I suspect not right away, and we'll see if Russell next time around coming into that bus stop chicane, if he can try to make some sort of move to get back at Chris there.
And here's James Cullen coming through the Radical field for the first time. And Chuck Chambliss still able to keep Julio Palacio behind him, but just barely.
And Jeremy Burris still trying to get past Gilles Moret here.
Jeremy Burris instantly had to start from the pits. Unfortunately, he got disconnected during the pace lap and reconnected, but he had to fight his way through all of the traffic in order to get back to the LMPs. So here he is with Gilles Moret in 8th. So he's worked his way up pretty well, I'd say.
It probably helped it was probably to Burris's benefit that the 4 GTs decided to hang back quite a bit and then start the race late, because this is a short track, or it is a short lap, and the LMPs are going to catch the 4 GTs pretty quickly anyway. As Burris makes a nice move on the inside going into turn 8, he'll make the pass and move himself up into 8th spot. Like I was saying, this is a pretty short lap, and it wasn't going to be too long before the LMPs would catch back up to the 4 GTs, but the fact that they started back so far and because it is such a short lap, the LMP field caught the Ford GTs much quicker than they normally would if they had started more bunched up together. So that probably helped him. The LMP field slowed down and allowed him to help, you know, make that push to get back up to the front right now. So he's doing a good job so far. He's got himself up into 8th spot. Brent Briles is currently the next guy he's going to be chasing, and he's about 3.5 seconds up the road right now. So a bit of a gap between himself and the next car, but he's doing a good job to catch back up.
Yeah, it's a good point. I didn't watch him do it, but I'm guessing the Ford GTs all let him by before, you know, at the green while they were still hanging back. So they probably didn't really hold him up at all. Oh, and Russell Cow getting really close to Chris Damron Jr. under braking, but not Palacio close.
And so far, Damron doesn't seem to have been able to pull a gap on Russell Cow so far. He also just caught a quick look at the overall race leader, James Cullen, that was just about to make a pass on those guys. So it looks like that was Rene Weisflog had a bit of a spin there going through turn 1. I don't think he hit the Armco there on the inside. I don't think his car was damaged, but he's going to lose quite a bit of time, and he lost a couple spots there as well because of that. And
Stephen Clark and Matthew Voigt here. This is a battle for 9th right now, and they're about 22 seconds ahead of the leader. Stephen Clark, I think he's about 6 seconds behind Tim McLeish in 8th place, so they're kind of by themselves right now with Rene Weisflog there too, coming up towards them.
Jump ahead just a couple of spots. Kenny Coughlin in 7th, and Marty Jeffries just ahead of him in 6th.
Meanwhile, back to the battle for the lead in the Radicals. You can see some of the top cars in the LMPs come through. That's Brian Carey there in the number 79. Yeah, 79 Libro. He splits both those guys as he gets held up a little bit behind Chris Damron Jr. there, and that gives an opportunity for Russell Cow to make a move on the inside going into turn 8, and Damron's going to try and hold it on the inside, so he's back on the inside for turn 9. He's going to be able to do it, and that should give him or let him hold on to the first place position. Also, Andy Fuller there in 3rd place is going to look and try and get around these guys, so that will split up the battle a little bit. And it looks like he might get held up for a couple corners, which will allow Dan Quaroni, who we ride on board with now as they head through the final corner. That's going to allow him to catch back up, and looks like he's going to be able to challenge Fuller again for 3rd place like he did before. He's got a great run coming out, going into the first turn, but not quite as good as he had the first time. And Fuller will be able to hold on to that 3rd spot. But the two cars are going to be very close now. Let's see if Quaroni has anything for Fuller. And also, speaking of very close,
yeah, we got Russell Cow here, just really all over the back. Chris Damron Jr. again. That was terrible. I mean, for Andy Fuller there, these guys are battling hard for position. They're able to go side by side for a few corners, and this track is a little wide. It's not really that wide, so I think Andy Fuller could do here. And there's not a lot Russell Cow could do right there. He's on the wrong side of the track to make the move on Chris Damron Jr., and now he's got Anthony Nunez going to make a move on him with Rene Weisflog diving to the inside of Matthew Voigt, getting a little wide there as some of the LMPs are coming by, and Matthew Voigt actually gets position back. So he's still in a 10th, but he's got 8th place in sight right now, and the action's coming pretty quick as these LMPs are coming around some of the slower class cars, the Radicals in particular, and so you get to see the speed difference, but you get to see all these different battles kind of intersecting each other, which is pretty neat.
And Jeremy Burris catching up to Brent Briles now.
Yeah, he's managed to close that 3.5 second gap fairly quickly within just a few laps. So Jeremy Burris seems to have very good pace here around Watkins Glen. And Quaroni now getting a bit held up behind some Ford GTs, but Fuller also getting badly held up. He's going to actually go around the outside of Stephen Clark going through the final corner. Looks like Quaroni might be able to follow him through, as the battle in the back of the Ford GTs is still pretty close between these three guys. Rene Weisflog able to use some of the traffic to help catch himself back up, and he's right on the back of Matthew Voigt for 9th place.
And the number 63 is actually Russell Cow into the pits, and that seems very, very early.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuel mileage is for the Radicals, but that could get him to the end of the race. I don't know if that's damage related or not, but we'll have to take a look at that as he's dropped well down the Radical order here.
And Matthew Voigt putting a nice move on Stephen Clark going into the inner loop right now, and Rene Weisfeld are going to try and follow him through on the into the carousel. You can see, I believe that was Ryan Huff in the HPD going about 3 wide through the carousel section there to get around the battling 4 GTs, and Rene Weisfeld will be able to get past Stephen Clark there, and now he's going to set his sights on Matthew Voigt.
Yeah, you can really see there lots of grip for that LMP on the outside of the outer loop there. One of the misconceptions about there is
wow, big wreck.
That's Jeremy Burst not pointed the correct direction, and one of the Whoop-Ass racing cars in pieces.
Yeah, I believe that was Brent Briles, who he was battling with. He was very, very close, so they had some sort of incident in the inner loop there.
It's kind of shocking to see, I'll be honest, to suddenly come across, cars. Typically in iRacing you don't get that much damage, but I guess you see it looks like Brent Briles, his car was pretty crunched right there.
You just can't wait until they add the debris, I can tell.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be great. Good to see some more improvements with the debris, but especially kind of helpful here to see what's going on. And it's kind of hard to keep track of what battle we're following here, is because now we're back to Rene Weisfeld, and looks like Matthew Voigt battling for back to 8th position now, as Stephen Clark has dropped back to 10th. Shuffling everyone up and jumping from battle to battle here. It's just going to have to keep track of exactly where we are and what's happening.
And Weisfeld's going to take a little bit of a peek there on the inside going into the inner loop. Ooh, and he's actually able to get it done.
Wow.
Matthew Voigt taking a lot of curbing there to make sure he sticks on the inside and not cause contact with the 2 cars. But that was well done by both of those drivers, especially Matthew Voigt, to realize he was going to be coming through and to not take his normal line through there.
Those cars are really off-road machines compared to the HPDs. That would have thrown you into the wall, I think, if you tried it in the HPD. As Todd Carver washes out a little bit wide and hits Andy Fuller trying to go around on the outside.
And that's going to allow Daniel Qualroni to make a pass there and get by. And that looks like a fairly significant hit there on the side of Andy Fuller's HPD. Let's see if he has any sort of damage there. Well, it looks like he's got his wheel pointed straight out. Obviously, we don't have the full accuracy that you would see in sim, but it's not jarred dramatically to the side. He didn't pull off into the pit lane, so there's not a ton of damage. So hopefully he'll be able to continue, but that moves Qualroni up into 3rd spot in class. So that's a very, very good race for him so far. That's probably one of the highest we've seen him up the order, I think, so far this season.
Yeah, barring pit stops, we're well before pit stops now, so the HPDs as it stands is Cullen, Kerry, Qualroni, Fuller, and Ryan Huff in 5th position at the moment. And we're Julio Palacio here, Dr. Palacio right behind Chuck Chambliss. I don't really have a clever nickname for Chuck right now, but I'll think of something, or I'll try to. This battle continues. He's not really close enough right now. I don't think he's close enough to make a move, but he's definitely close enough to stay in the draft as Lauren Bateman and John Kuzland, Coast to Coast Racing teammates here, and 2nd and 3rd right now, and 4th and 5th not too far behind them. Good camera is positioning here, much better than we had at Zolder last week. Also, I believe this is Dan Corney's home track here in upstate New York, Watkins Glen.
My home track. My current home track would be Lime Rock, but yes, back when I grew up in Ithaca, New York, this was the closest one, 45 minutes away.
Yes, where I am right now in London, Ontario, there are no decent racetracks anywhere close to that ways, but that's Kenny Collins getting off track there in turn 10, but he's able to get back on without losing too much time, other than some soiled undershorts and pride.
And unfortunately, as we take a look at Stephen Clark, he's currently running in 10th spot right now. Unfortunately, Marty Jeffries, rather, has entered the pits, and looks like he's probably retired his car, which is unfortunate. He was having a pretty strong race until he had to retire for whatever reason.
And Russell Cow is currently down 2 laps, so that also suggests that he had damage.
And really that gives Chris Stamron Jr. a free, pretty much just a cruising race right now. He's got 18 seconds over second place car John Koosland, so really under zero pressure whatsoever right now to try and stay ahead of everybody. He just needs to not make any mistakes, and he has this race sewn up pretty much.
That's one of the things we're noticing right now is the way these radicals, who are faster than the 4GTs, have to pass them because they don't have a... it's better now because of the 4GT's slower speeds, but they definitely do not have much of a speed advantage on the straightaways, so they really got to make do, especially in this this boot section here is a good spot to do that, to kind of get a run, get in their draft, and then outbrake them on the inside, because they definitely are better on the brakes.
And we're taking a look at Matthew Voigt right now. He's trying to fight his way back up to Rene Weisflag. They're getting a bit split up now as some of the radicals were coming through their battle. But the gap right now is under a second, so really that battle can resume at any point in time. Rene Weisflag currently has a fair distance to catch back up into the next 4GT. It's about 7.5 seconds currently. That would be take him up to Tim McLeish, currently running in 6th spot. So pretty big separation there, but it is possible depending on mistakes from other drivers, or I guess overall pace. Right now looks like Matthew Voigt and Rene Weisflag are fairly similar. Rene hasn't been able to make any sort of a gap, well, much of a gap I guess, to himself and Voigt, so we should be able to see this battle resume here momentarily, I would think.
And you can see the bug in the middle of Matthew Voigt's windshield there. I assume it's a bug of some sort. And then it is a great corner to watch the LMPs come past here because it's really, like I said, they have a ton of grip, but I was saying before, the misconception is that they can kind of turn and just corner wherever they want. That's not exactly true, but definitely on the outside of that outer loop there, they can get the turn in right, stick it on the outside, and just fly past some of these slower class cars. And it's a really fun corner to lap other guys, really get a sense of the speed these guys are going. Basically all the way from the bus stop, the entrance. Oh, that's Carl Mumbauer going backwards. Wall. Hopefully not too hard. Hopefully that won't hurt him. That's not going to... Russell Cow did retire, by the way. He's at least 4 laps down right now, so that's not going to cost Carl Mumbauer another position. He was in 6th position already, but not ideal. But yeah, I don't remember where I was starting that little thing there. What was I talking about? Do you guys remember?
I don't. I got caught up with the spin.
Well, you were talking about going around the outside and how much grip they have.
Yeah,
yeah, no, it's like a really good sense for the speed there coming around the outside, and just a lot of fun to be able to let those other cars turn in, hit the grab. Oh, now I remember, I'd already talked about that. The LMPs, the big speed differences from the entrance of the bus stop all the way through to coming around that outer loop there, like basically with the inner and outer loop on our track map. I think they're probably about, through that section, probably about 6 seconds faster than the other cars, 4GTs in particular. Probably about 6 seconds faster. And that's only 2 corners right there, so you can be a little ways behind going in there, and the 4GT doesn't know you're there, and then they're going through the corner. Next thing they know, they have an LMP flying around the outside of them going through the other loop. So it must be a little shocking to them to see that sometimes, but after a few times around, I think you probably get used to it, and it just becomes part of the scenery.
Yeah, I think we've got a pretty good battle developing right here in the 4GTs with Todd Carver coming under pressure from Daniel Gralti. Gralti's got the gap down to about half a second, so this could become fairly interesting here in another lap or so. But yeah, just going on Brian's point, I think we've seen 2 good examples of the overall faster cornering speed there through the inner and outer loop. I believe when Andy Fuller went and passed 2 Ford GTs, one on the inside and then on the outside in the same corner, and then Ryan Huff being able to hold it, I think, almost basically 3 wide through that corner. It's 2 Ford GTs at the same time, so the speed difference there between the HPDs and then the slowest class, the Ford GT, is monumental here at this circuit.
And speaking of monumental, we have a radical battle here that's got caught up behind Kenny Coughlin in the yellow Ford GT with John Kuzlin and Lauren Bateman in the radicals. Teammates battling out pretty hard there. Lauren Bateman got caught in the inside, so John Kuzlin's probably going to get a better run through the corner, and well, Lauren's going to be able to catch some of that speed back in the draft. It looks like John had enough momentum to be well ahead by the time they get to the bus stop, so there's lots of other places this radical can pass, because what we've seen from the onboard so far is that radical can stick right up to the tail end of that other car and kind of hold on to him throughout the lap. Yeah, it's a battle for the lead for the 4 GTs as Dan Gralty is caught up to the back of Todd Carver.
And we'll jump a little bit further down the 4 GT field on board with Matthew Voigt. Hopefully we'll stay on board as we go through the inner loop. There we go. That gives you a pretty good sense. Now with the updates to the 4 GT, the car is much more stable, and it seems to have a lot more grip, much more hard to spin the car, but I'm sure they're still fighting that car pretty hard to make sure they can get it through as fast as possible. And you saw we cut away just as it was happening, but I think it was Ryan Huff was coming up and making a pass on Matthew Voigt there as they were heading into the outer loop or the carousel, and caught it in his rear view camera, and as he was approaching that corner you couldn't really see him at all, so that just kind of goes to show how much faster the HPDs that are through that section of this circuit.
Well, this being a 70-minute race, we're coming up on the 35-minute mark, so we're almost at halfway, so expect HPD pit stops in the next few minutes, like the other classes we've seen already this year that they tend to be a little bit more variable, but let's keep an eye on the gap in this battle here with Todd Carver and Dan Gralty, because I'm sure they're not going to be pitting on the same lap, and even if they do, that'd be good for us, because we can directly see how that will shake out, but for the moment, what 0.2 of a second looks like in the Ford GT. That's also what it would look like if you're being dragged behind one of these cars.
And it's just about as close here between Chuck Chambliss and Julio Palacios. They head through the inner loop right now. These guys have been pretty close all race. So we saw Palacio up battling, I believe it was for the top 3. I'm not sure if he ever made it into the podium spot, but he was quite close, and then he fell back a little bit. Was able to Chuck Chambliss was able to find a way past, and then they've stuck pretty much. Oh, and that's Dan Gralty spinning coming. Wow, that's out of the toe of the boot right there. Looks like he's managed to keep it off all the walls. It's a HPD. They're nearly collecting him.
That was Dan Gralty there in the HPD coming through, and probably not not a good feeling, I would guess, going seeing that in front of you.
No, he was he was spinning and sort of wobbling left and right. It's like, do I go left? Do I go right? Do I left? Do I go right? Yeah, eventually I picked one. It worked out all right.
And that's huge spin allowed Eduardo Beninca to also make a pass there, and that moves him up into second place. The gap to Todd Carver now over 5 seconds, so fairly significant there. Daniel Gralty was, almost fighting for the lead, and that nearly affected a couple cars in the podium classes. Almost took out Daniel Polroni, who is currently still running in third place, and Dan Gralty, who was running in second, nearly took himself out. So close call there for a lot of top running cars.
We'll see how quickly Daniel can get back here. I'm not sure exactly what happened. I think he probably just got his wheel on the grass there, getting on the outside, but he seems to have the legs on Beninca here, and see if he can. No, he's not close enough. He's not going to be able to dive on the inside. You basically have to make a clean pass there, be alongside them as you get into the braking zone. LMP really doesn't have a braking zone, but for these other cars, got to make sure you have at least half your car along the inside. Otherwise, there's a good chance that one or both of you are going to end up off the track. So.
and Beninka getting a bit of a break there as traffic interrupts the battle. There's the HPD of Ryan Huff, and also the close battle between teammates John Cousin and Lauren Bateman making their way through. They're still fighting it out for second place in class. John Cousin currently holding on to that position. So Beninka has a bit of breathing room now. You can see the gap has opened up quite a bit, and it could, depending on how these two radicals get by Beninka, that could close back up. So we'll see how this plays out.
And 5 seconds left of the first half of the race. Just one note in the HPDs, it looks like Andy Fuller, because of that damage, has made an early pit stop, so he's been in the pits and come back on 6th position. Now we've got Corey Davis here. He's in 4th position in the... Oh, it looks like we've got some pit stops here. It looks like Eduardo Beninka and Dan Grolty have joined in the pits, as well as Chuck Chambliss is into the pits as well. So those guys splitting their race strategy 50-50. And moves Corey Davis up into 2nd position, about 10 seconds behind, 10.5 seconds behind race leader Todd Carver. We're back with Lauren Bateman, who's Renee Weisslog, sorry, who's coming past
A few cars in the pit lane right now.
Yes.
Gets by Gralty and Beninka as they are currently exiting. Looks like they were heading out of the pit lane, so he will forfeit those positions back once he has to make his pit stop.
Unless he can miraculously drive the entire race on 1 tank of fuel, which is probably impossible, but just want to throw out some random possibilities of you guys out there at home watching. I don't know if you saw in the last shot there, you saw the iRacing blimp up ahead, and until I had my the new computer that I just got with much improved graphics, I didn't realize the blimp actually flew around the track. I kept seeing it in different places, which kind of weirded me out. I thought it was just one of those static things, but one of those interesting features that you had there that actually works out. Doesn't really improve the racing at all, but just random thoughts that I generally have.
Have you seen the horribly animated flock of birds yet?
Yeah, I thought those were some sort of like pixie demons, but no, apparently they were birds, so... The flying monkeys from the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, something like that.
And we have a someone's in the pit. That's Anthony Muniz, actually. He's in the pit, and well, now in 6th position as Andy Fuller has retaken his position back, and we'll see where Muniz comes out of his pit stop. Gilles Moret, who had overtaken Muniz in the pit stop. Flying through the S's right now.
And I'll just point out the overall gap in 1st and 2nd. Actually, you can see right now Brian Carey, who was about to point out the gap between himself and the overall leader, James Cullen, is about 5.5 seconds right now. And just keep in mind, James Cullen has not yet made his pit stop yet, and I see that gap opening just up a little bit more right now as Kerry makes his way through 4GT traffic, losing in quite a bit of speed there through the S's section of Watkins Glen. But this is a fairly close gap that we've seen all this season. Normally, we would expect Cullen to have a bit more of a distance between himself and the rest of the HPD field, just based on the very, very quick pace that Cullen does have. So Brian Carey doing a very good job to at least keep the gap reasonable right now. And if Cullen happens to have some sort of spin, which is very possible, it is this while this is a easy track to like Dan pointed out, easy track to learn, and you can do your quick laps on. There are quite a few places that you can make a mistake, as we saw Gralty have in the 4GT at this very corner. So we'll have to see how that plays out. That could be an interesting factor later in the race if Kerry can keep that close.
For sure, it can be very unforgiving with all that Armco really close to the side, so a mistake can easily end your race.
I think a lot of it too, though, is I think part of it is a lot of these corners are cambered a little bit to the inside, which actually gives you a little bit of a run through the corners there, and is pretty helpful. But the one thing that I think is, like I said, I don't think it's easy, but I mentioned earlier, the track really does flow, so as long as you're able to stay smooth, you're able to keep up your speed. A place like Zolder, you could be smooth, but if you didn't keep your momentum up through the corners, especially through the chicane, you'd think you'd be going all right, but you could be losing half a second each chicane. Whereas here, it's really hard to lose half a second a corner. I mean, even the bus stop is relatively, there's not a lot of difference between these cars here, so I don't find there's as many places where you could, oh, there's spins in the back and through on racing here.
Jeffries looked like he was spinning there. And at the same time, we've got James Mines versus Matthew Voigt, and James Mines ahead, and
Dan Gralty
Gralty
coming
also,
back from his pit stop.
Yep, exactly.
But yeah, like I said, I mean, there's just it's a momentum, like a not momentum track, but there's a lot of corners that are longer corners, and it's really hard to lose a ton of time in a particular corner by not getting it quite right. I mean, you don't get the corner quite right, you go a little wide, you miss an apex a little bit, you might lose a tenth or two. You're not going to lose half a second or more like you could at the last track we're at Zolder.
And Gralty doing his best to try and get himself past this. Well, he's not really battling with these cars because he's already made his pit stop, so this is a full battle that he is currently in right now. And I'm sure he'd like to see if he can't clear James Mines as quickly as possible. Mines currently running in 6th position in the 4GT, so Daniel Gralty, I'm sure, would like to get past him as quickly as possible. Taking a look at Todd Carver now, he has made his pit stop, so he's currently being shown in 2nd place, and I believe that is well, that's Kenny Coughlin right there. He's getting by, but also Corey Davis has now taken over the lead of the 4GT, so he should get a bonus point for the championship.
I see if Dan's able to make a run to turn 1 here, but if he's not able to get to the inside, I'm expecting him to stay wide, maximize this corner exit, and try to get James on the exit. But we're going to see Stephen Clark passing Kenny Coughlin in the pits. Very cool camera view still. See the shadows of the fence on the ground there as he gets just a little wide of the apex right there, but pretty smooth run through corner 1 there for Stephen Clark.
Well, it looks like a HPD interrupted the battle between Gralty and James Mines, so he's a little bit further back than he would have liked and wasn't able to get a nice run coming out of the S's down towards the inner loop, and he's fallen about 0.8 of a second behind Mines at the moment, so he'll have to work to catch that back up. We know that Gralty does have good pace, so I expect him to make up that distance, or that time, but we'll have to see how long it takes for him to get around. Actually, I'm sure he would prefer that Mines would just take his pit stop this lap, and he wouldn't even have to battle with him.
Yeah, but the thing with the 4GTs, the tanks are big enough that it's theoretical that James is going to be running a full tank for quite a long time. So, I mean, this patience can only take you so far sometimes.
Well, Daniel Gralty right now obviously keeping up with James Mines, but he's not really right on the tail of him at the moment, so he's going to have to work harder if he wants to get by.
Based on the gaps right there, he is 15 seconds or so behind Todd Carver.
That sounds about right. He lost quite a bit of time when he had that big spin coming out of the toe of the boot, so that sounds about right. It took him about, you normally can lose anywhere from, depending on the severity of the spin, 5 to 15 seconds or so. And he was, I believe, facing the wrong way on the circuit after his car came to a stop, so that would make sense if he lost about 15 seconds.
Well, he'd actually, I checked the gap, he was about 10 seconds back after that spin there, so after the pit stop, he's now 15, so that extra 5 seconds there is just the pace from the pit stop, and probably in con traffic like he is. There's Tim McLeish's delicious steam whistle car.
And McLeish, you can see there by the indicator light, is currently running in P3 in the 4GT, so he has yet to make his pit stop, of course, and he'll forfeit a couple of positions once he decides to do that. But currently having a solid race so far here at Watkins Glen. He's got Eduardo Beninca right there behind him, chasing him down, and Beninca, of course, made his pit stop already, so he is actually in the same position that Gralty is in at the moment, trying to work his way past cars that he's not actually battling with.
Oh my gosh, you see Chuck Chambliss in the background there.
Oh no, I missed that. I was looking down at the battle up front.
He had a huge fishtail, but it looks like he caught it and kept it under control.
There's Tim entering the pits.
Yeah, that's I believe that is turn 9, and we pointed that out at the top of the broadcast. That's a very easy corner to lose your car and overshoot. Oh, and Tim unfortunately overshoots his pit stall a little bit, has to back it up so they can get the virtual fuel lines to the car.
Yep, and we have Dan Croney coming out of his pit stop there ahead of Andy Fuller. So that's Dan Croney maintaining 4th position. Ryan Huff, Brian Carey, and James Collin all yet to pit.
Yep, Qualroni had built a bit of a gap between himself and Andy Fuller after the bit of contact that Fuller had with the Ford GT of Todd Carver in turn 9. So I'm guessing the damage might be slowing him down just a little bit, and we'll see if they were replacing any or fixing any bodywork there once Andy Fuller took his early pit stop. So we'll have to see if that gap closes up. Currently, the gap being shown about 4.5 seconds between Fuller and Qualroni, so we'll see how that plays out. Those guys will move up another position once Ryan Huff makes his pit stop, although Huff currently holding the 3rd place position.
Yeah, Fuller entered the pits. He had a little bit of damage. He was 1 second behind me when he entered, and as you mentioned, 4.5 seconds gap after I exited.
I have the race leader in the Radicals, Chris Damron Jr., lapping James Mines right now.
And really the more interesting thing is the gap between James Mines and Daniel Gralty really hasn't closed back up like I thought was expecting it to. I know obviously they have a Radical separating them right now, but the gap is about 1 second between Mines and Gralty, and I would expect that to be a bit closer than it is now with the overall pace that we saw Gralty showing earlier.
We have Gilles Moret coming through, but also race leader James Cullen is coming through to lap Dan Gralty here, and he's coming up to lap Gilles Moret too, so lapping a car in your own class sometimes is a little bit more difficult than coming around these slower class cars. They generally don't hold you up as much in the corner, but at the same time they can theoretically hold you up for many more corners than a slower class car would ever be able to. It's coming down a little bit. It's 9/10 of a second right now, but James Mines is keeping the pace up here. It's like nothing Dan Gralty's doing. It's not like Dan Gralty's making mistakes. It's just James at this stage of the race is putting some good laps together and holding on to the position.
Yep, Gralty's got the gap down to about 0.8 of a second, which is what the gap was roughly saying at the last time we kind of took a look at this battle. Looks like he's taking it down a little bit more. Oh, that's Beninca off there at turn 8. That's quite significant because he was pretty high up the order, running in 3rd place. He was actually up as high as 2nd place after Gralty had his spin. So that's going to knock him down into P5, and that is so we'll have to see where Corey Davis comes out, because he was, I believe, running in 4th place. Looks like Brian Carey also diving into the pit lane for his scheduled pit stop. But yeah, that's quite significant to see Beninca fall down to P5. So we'll have to see where Corey Davis comes out of the pits to see if that moves Beninca up into 5th or 4th place rather, or if Davis is able to hold on to a couple spots. Now we go on board with Gralty in his Ford GT, as he's got the gap down to about 0.5 second, so he's closing it up a bit more than we saw earlier And of course, James Mines hasn't made his pit stop yet, so Gralty will eventually get past him. Right now, actually, I don't think he's being held up at all, so really not doesn't want to take any risks to try and get by because he feels like he's being held up. And Daniel Qualroni and looks like Andy Fuller as well will be passing Ryan Huff, who is in the pit lane, taking his one scheduled pit stop at about 20 minutes left in the race.
I can see, like say, slowly work it down to like half a second, as you can see here, but you're going to need to make up that time, or at least 0.3 of a second, in the very most, in one corner to be able to make a pass. So I don't think that's going to happen until James dives into the pits, but not happening this lap. There goes Ed Force 1, passing those two cars into the first corner there. Oh, it looked like someone was getting really loose in turn 1 there. I don't know who that was.
I'm not sure if that was myself or Dan, but it was one of us. Obviously recovered and we're still driving, but I'm not sure which one of us that was. And this is actually the closest we've seen Gralty to Mines in quite a long time. You can see he's right on the rear of the number. What number is he now? 84. That's what he is. 84 of James Mines. I was going to say that, and then I didn't know the actual number of his car, so that didn't really work out all that well. But this is the closest we've seen these two guys in quite a while since Gralty exited the pit lane. So let's see if he's getting some speed now and is able to get by James Mines.
You can see there that Dan Gralty had a run into the corner, but he didn't have a run enough to get along the inside of him, which meant that he cut all his momentum going through the corner, and any gains he had made through turn 1 are gone. That being said, the gap is still pretty low, so he's poised to strike right now. Again, that's what 0.2 of a second looks like, folks. Also, what would it look like, too, if you were kidnapped by the Mafia and could look out through a small peephole in the front of the car? But to be fair, there's a rear-engine car, so the trunk would be, I guess, in the front. You get the idea, though. Just trying out some new metaphors and just methods of description here to see if I can kind of bring the race closer to the people at home and just to see what
for all those people who have been in the back of the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they actually have little latches in the back of pretty much every car made for the last, I don't know, quite a few years. It allows you to open the trunk from the inside.
Just in case you ever are kidnapped by the Mafia.
So, folks, if you're out there looking for a good kidnapping car, make sure that they don't have one of those old latch things there, because you're gonna be surprised.
Or just break it like Brian has.
One of those two options.
On board with Tim McLeish now, and see someone must be in the pits. We've got Matthew Voigt currently in 8th in the pits, and there we go, Tim McLeish taking the spot from him.
And getting a look at John Cousin, who we haven't seen for quite a while after his battle with his teammate Lauren Bateman was broken up when they were in the pits. He's currently passing Julio Palacio, who's making his scheduled pit stop at the moment. You can see him right there exiting. So that moves Cousin up into 3rd place. Lauren Bateman has yet to make his pit stop, so we'll have to see where he comes out in relation to Cousin once he decides to stop for that final bit of fuel that he needs. Ooh, and that was overall race leader James. Well, actually, he's not overall race leader because Brian Carey is. And Cullen is in 2nd place. You can see some damage there to his car. Cullen very slow, and he has made his pit stop, so that is quite significant. He's been off at some point, or he's made contact with someone. And yes, some significant damage there to the right-hand side of Cullen's car. He's into the pits for his second time this race. That's very significant because that means he's pitting for damage. So he's lost another spot to Daniel Qualroni. He's moved himself up into second place. And Andy Fuller will soon overtake him as well. Let's see if this is a terminal problem for James Cullen. And this is going to be quite significant for the championship battle if he has to retire.
And we should see in just a moment in the upper left, number 56, he is out. That's James Cullen. So he did retire.
That's huge championship implication because after last week at Zolder, we get one drop week for points. And last week was a drop week, so it was almost a free race for James Cullen. I mean, and then the next lowest race was a second place finish. I believe he had an Infineon, but that's 2 DNFs in a row, so that's huge for the points.
And as the battle for third place now in the 4GTs rages on between James Lyons and Daniel Gralti, just looking at the race control notes, and Cullen having an issue at the interloop and went off, made contact with the tire barriers, and that caused the now we know terminal damage to his HPD. So unusual mistake on Cullen's part puts him out of the race, and he has dropped to.
He'll drop to 8th because
8th place, yes, because Burris is the last one that was currently running, and he's 20 laps down. So yep. He'll drop to 8th, which will still, because there's no, like in Formula 1, there's no restriction on finishing a certain distance compared to the leader to score points. So he'll still pick up a good number of points, but that's definitely far off from a win. So we'll have to be interesting to see what the points look like after the final 13 minutes and 40 seconds.
Okay, well, I'm going to take this opportunity with about 13 minutes left to refill my water glass, as it is pretty dry down here in the 1K booth, so I will be right back.
And James Mines has taken his fuel very, very far, almost the farthest of anyone in the 4GTs. The only other person that hasn't pitted yet that I can see is Corey Davis. He's still leading the class, and he has about 17 seconds over Todd Carver in P2. So James Mines rather, and Corey Davis are taking their fuel all the way. And right now, Gralti's still trying to find a way by, but I don't really think that he doesn't seem to have the speed that he was showing earlier, or James Mines has just turned his speed up in the second half of his stint. So Gralti's been able to get close, but not nearly close enough to try and challenge after we saw him get within a couple tenths of a second a few laps ago. He's fallen back down to about 7/10 of a second back at the moment. Also looks like Lauren Bateman has made his pit stop. He has stayed in front of his teammate John Clusen, and the gap between the two teammates is about 5 seconds. So Clusen either having a harder time getting through traffic, or Bateman deciding to pit later, needed to take on less fuel, and he saved a bit of time that way. But the gap between those guys, 5 seconds right now, and we know it was, basically nose to tail earlier, basically, through the entire first stint for John Kuzland, excuse me. So that battle has broken up. Chuck Chambliss has unfortunately fallen back behind Julio Palacio. I'm not exactly sure what happened there, but there's about 12.5 seconds separating himself and Palacio. So really no battles happening in the Radical class. Chris Samron Jr. currently leading by about 37 seconds over Lauren Bateman. So again, no challenge for him after all he's done is extend that, 18-second lead that he had fairly early on in the race. So the Radicals, unless someone crashes out, is fairly settled with 11 minutes to go in the race.
Yeah, just I don't know if you guys covered this while I was just gone here, but does James Mines need to pit? Maybe he pitted in that melee there is closer to Dan Gralty than we thought, and is able to hold on. There's 10 minutes left, and he's still out there.
Well, Corey Davis now just pulling into the pit lane, and he had yet to make a pit stop. So let's see what happens if James Mines hits the pits in the next lap or two. We'll have to see.
And so Todd Carver is retaking the lead there, and let's see if he's going to happen. I assume it's going to happen now, because I don't think he can go much longer than, well, let's check next lap. We'll say next lap.
Yeah, next lap.
We're pretty deep into this race here, and doesn't look like he's moving over anytime soon.
And Corey Davis exiting the pit lane there. We'll see where he comes out in relation to these two drivers. And it looks like he manages to stay in second place according to our timing and scoring. The number popped up a little bit further when they were closer when the little exit graphic popped up, but I'm not sure if that pops up when they exit, where I guess where you would hit the stop of the pit limiter.
It looks like he's held it.
Yeah, so it's where they exit the pit limiting speed limit section.
Well, yeah, it hasn't changed yet, so I'm assuming that is actually his position. So he's moved up roughly 2 spots, because I think he was holding steady in 4th place early on in the race. So he's moved up a couple spots through the pit lane, just made a quick stop for fuel, I'm assuming. I'm not sure if he took tires or not, but he had a fairly quick pit stop, so I'm assuming it was just a quick splash of fuel to get him through the final 10 minutes. And we're almost to the deciding lap to see if James Mines still needs to pit. And take a look at Renee Weissflog right now, who is passing. Who is that? Oh, that's Matthew Voigt with some heavy damage on the left side of that Ford GT. So that's moving Renee up into 8th spot.
Yeah, this pit exit here, as you can see, it's actually a pretty good pit exit. Probably one of the better ones we have in iRacing, because it gets you out with a good head of steam, and it's on the other side of the track that the racing line is. And normally it puts you at pretty much close to racing speed too, so you don't get a lot of bottlenecks like you do at, let's say, Zolder, which dumps you right under the apex of turn 2, or the next race we're at, which is Phillip Island, which kind of dumps you in front of cars going at 3,000 miles an hour, which is not ideal.
And Mine is staying out another lap, so this is starting to look like he might have... I don't know, he might have already made his pit stop. I don't think he has, but he's taking it down to, you know, the bitter end. And with only 8 minutes left in the race, I have to wonder if he's going to have to stop or not.
So here we were initially thinking that after the Dan Gralty's pit stop that James Mines was just holding him back, but in fact it looks like he wasn't giving way because he wanted that position and he was going to keep it, doggone.
Any chance we get to use the word doggone it in the commentary, we'll do it. But yeah, no, like I'm just watching him here, and I mean, he looks like Dan Gralty's got the speed on him, but I haven't seen James miss an apex. I haven't seen him get loose. I haven't seen him run wide. They'll probably do so right in this corner as I'm talking about it. But yeah, so he's right up in the corner there, right to the exit curb there, all the way over the right-hand side here. But he's right up along the inside here. Just nice, let it roll through, late apex through the corner, like that's good. And yeah, he's just running a darn good race right now. And I mean, even if Dan did have a little bit of speed, I don't think he has much, if any. There's nowhere to go.
Car coming through the corner there really looks like Two-Face, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Which, the Aaron Eckhart version, the Tommy Lee Jones version?
Let's go with Tommy Lee Jones.
That's the Harvey Dent there. For those of you who were the original, the 1989, starting with Michael Keaton and then ending terribly with George Clooney series, that was Harvey Dent, the character that is Two-Face. Started off as Billy D. Williams, who is a black man who played Lando Calrissian, to then become Tommy Lee Jones, who is extremely white and played the Marshal from The Fugitive. So, yeah, there's just a random nothing to do with this race right now, but it's just one of those things that always bothered me. So,
You know, I do not remember Billy D. Williams playing Harvey Dent. What was that?
the first one with
too?
the first one with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, I love that movie, but I don't remember him in it at all.
Hey, he was Harvey Dent. He was great. You'd think he was on screen for 2 minutes, but he was Harvey.
Yeah,
Dent.
I was going to say, what part did Harvey Dent have during that movie?
I think there was like a scene in front of the church, and remember the church bell came down, and I don't know, it was a while since I've seen that movie, since the last The Dark Knight series has been pretty awesome. Almost forgotten about that, but there really is nothing cooler than Michael Keaton saying, "I'm Batman." Christian Bale seems kind of overall cooler, but his Batman dialogue is not as cool. Which doesn't take away from the fact that there's an awesome battle still happening for third place in the 4 GTs.
And with just 4 minutes and counting down now from some change left in the race, I'm willing to bet that James Mines doesn't need to make a pit stop. He's the only one who hasn't, as far as I know, been in like what we would think of as the usual pit window. This is looking like a actual battle that if Garlty wants to get on the podium, he needs to see if he can't find a way past James Mines. And right now, about 0.7 of a second or so separating the two cars. So really not as close as we've seen the two competitors. So Garlty doesn't seem like he has the pace to be able to get up and around James Mines. He's had a couple times where he's been able to close the gap, but hasn't had enough to get around. Oh, and it's the 4GT Mafia cam now.
No, the Mafia Com is the one. Well, I guess that's true. The 4GT,
yeah. That's why I labeled it 4GT.
Gotcha.
I don't know, is 4GT like a really cool Mafia car? You think it needs to be some sort of like a, or like, like a Lincoln or something like that? Like 4GT seems more, really seem like it'd be involved in organized crime. Maybe like a cool, like, sort of like bank heist, like Jason Statham sort of thing.
The other thing is I've never seen the hood open on the 4GT, but considering those air holes, the gaps that, for airflow in the hood,
yeah.
I'm not sure there's a whole lot of room up there for a person. So for all of you would-be kidnappers, probably not the best car choice for you.
Just like to say, unfortunately, on behalf of ISRA and our sponsors, E1 Symbio, we're not pro-kidnapping by any means, but we do like to discuss the possibilities and rate these fine motor vehicle products on their merits. And yes,
just think of us as a less funny Top Gear, and you're okay.
Yes, a much less funny Top Gear.
Yes,
much less rich Top Gear.
Yeah.
Alright, so only 2.5 minutes left. Basically, we're going to be going off the LMP leader's time here, so you should be able to see the white come up when he's crossed the line, which means he's on his last lap, but then everyone crossing the line will be hitting the white flag there in turn. So.
And Brian Carey's still the leader after the retirement of James Cullen. Daniel Qualroni in second place, and he is close to 9 seconds back from Brian Carey, 8.8 seconds back at the moment. So it's close between them. If Carey happened to make a mistake, Qualroni's there to capitalize on it. But Brian Carey's we haven't really seen him at all this race, so he's just been banging on the marks and turning laps. So I don't expect that to happen. Andy Fuller, currently running P3 in the LMP class. He is close to 6 seconds behind Daniel Qualroni, so he hasn't had anything to I don't know if he still has damage or if they fixed it or what, but he's actually dropped a couple seconds after the pit stop cycled through, so he hasn't had anything for Qualroni in second place. And everyone else, except for this battle we're watching on screen, is pretty much, their battle is pretty much fought and won. So it's just this last little bit here in the 4 GTs.
Yeah, he's no closer now than he has been the entire time we've been watching these guys, and like I said, Anthony has been alluding to really kind of monopolizing the camera time here, but is the closest battle on the track. I wouldn't know if it's the... actually, looking around, I don't think there was any other battles going on, so I guess this is really the only thing to be watching.
Yeah, he's able to get, you know, looks like the white flag is out, so Brian Carey has gone across the timing line, and we should do one more lap. I'm not sure if these guys will have 1 or 2 more laps.
Well, they complete this lap and then do one more.
And then one more. Okay, so 1.5 more laps here for these two guys, and based on what we're seeing, as long as James Mines rather continues to his smooth driving style that we've seen this entire race, he should come away with a podium position.
That said.
Yeah, that said. Carlty's very close now.
As the camera on Matthew Voigt there, had James Mines had to check up a little bit, which let Gralty get a run on him.
This will probably be one of the best chances that he has here going down into turn 1 as they start their final lap to see if he gets a nice run coming out of the final corner. It's going to be close, and gap is about 0.2 of a second. Doesn't look like he's going to have be close enough to take a look on the inside going into turn 1, so there's not going to be a whole lot of opportunities left for Daniel Gralty to get past Mines if he has the speed to do so. The gap is still very close. Let's see if he gets a run coming through the S's.
So one thing coming through his S's here so late on a set of tires, it's kind of easy for that car to wash out, but looks like Gralty's got the speed that he needs, and if he's going to do it, it's going to happen now. Going to the inside. Oh, nice blocking move by James Mines.
Contact there between Mines and Gralty. Gralty's going to miss the inner loop bus stop there. He's going to have to take a big... Well, it looks like he slowed down right down to avoid taking that time penalty, but that is going to finish the battle right there. And that little bit of contact decided the whole thing as Brian Carey takes his second win of the GTC Season 9. That was a perfect timing there for everything to shake out. That was a good timing there. Daniel Quaroni taking second place, his highest finish of the season. Andy Fuller will pull in at third to round out the podium for the LMP2 class. And that was quite a way to end this race, as Chris Dameron Jr. will take first place there in the Radicals.
And we have yet to see, but here comes Todd Carver winning the 4 GTs.
Renee Weisflogel will pull in at 8th place.
There we go, the celebratory camera shot here.
We've got the top 2 cars in the LMP class there doing a little photo op for the cameras there as they make around their cool down lap. And there we go, we have Lauren Bateman finally scoring on the Radicals, coming in second place. And Gralty will finish in 4th place, rather. Oh,
yes, fourth.
John Kuzlin will pull in the last spot of the podium, and we'll take a look at the points.
Okay, well, as you said, quite a shakeup. James Cullen not scoring too many points this race. So Anthony Muniz is now just 17 points down. Brian Carey just 19 points down. Huge gap there made up for Daniel Quaroni. There was a big battle for 4th, but now there's a big gap there to Brent Briles and Dimas Milana. Radicals, we've got Russell Cow with 161 points. Once again, a situation where he is not scoring nearly as many as he normally would for a win, but Lauren Bateman and John Kuzland in their own battle are a full win behind, and because there are only 7 cars in the Radicals this race, they basically have to not show up in order to not, to lose out, because he still scores those big points. But meanwhile, Corey Davis, Daniel Gralty, look at that, fighting it out for 2nd, and even the top spot there if Todd Carver makes any mistakes in the next 2 races. Eduardo Beninca losing a little bit of the gap there to the top spot, but still potentially in the running for the championship. And we've got the last 2 races up here on the board. Phillip Island, which will run tomorrow night. That one is going to be crazy. And then Road Atlanta to finish out the season.
Yeah, really looking forward to the end of this championship. Only 2 races left, some very close battles if you forget that the radicals exist. And yeah, it's,
well, they're having close battles. There just aren't enough of them, you know.
Yeah, yes. Touche.
Well, so don't forget, you can sign up for Season 10 pretty soon, once we finish up the season. It hasn't quite happened yet, but it's coming, so go to israleague.com and join the forum, introduce yourself, and get ready for another great season after this one. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Thank you to ISRA League, the racers, and the admins who make it possible, to Todd Carver for trying real hard to do those donuts, to Z1 Simwheel, our sponsor, for keeping us on the air here, and have a good night.